I talk a lot on this channel about reducing overwhelm and mixing with intention. But what does that actually look like in practice? In today's video, I deal with a mix where I had 6 sets of drum room tracks. I work through each track deliberately, identifying problems early, and build a plan that keeps the whole thing under control. By the end, you'll have a process you can take straight into your next mix, so that next time your session feels like it's a bit too much, you'll know exactly what to do. Before we get into it, this lesson is taken from my classic rock masterclass, which is normally part of the rock masterclass collection. But because it's you, I've put an exclusive link in the description so you can get this masterclass on its own. You can follow along with the full mix or just go deeper on this process throughout the entire mix, all captured in real time. The link's down below when you're ready, complete with discount exclusively for the YouTube community. We've got a lot of drum rooms here, and I just need to listen to what we've got and decide which of each is contributing best, and if there's any amongst these 5, 6 drum rooms that aren't really adding that much, so I'm not going to use them. So let's remind ourselves what the drums sound like. This is a verse. And a chorus sounds like this. Right, lots more cymbals in the chorus. Rooms having the potential to add to that cymbalage. I'm going to listen, I think, to the chorus initially whilst auditioning some of these rooms. Let's just solo up the first drum room then. So we've got drum near. Let's have a listen to that. Quite splashy sounding. Let's see what drum room rear sounds like. The kick on the drum rear sounds hollow, and that's just giving me a bit of a red flag in terms of phase and how it's going to impact on the drum sound we've already got on the kick drum and its energy and its power. So I'm leaning towards the near, the drum room near, and maybe not using the rear. Let's move through then. The next one is drum room 1. See what that sounds like. Everything sounds equally level. The cymbals, the kick, the snare, the room, and it just sounds like you are at the down the corridor outside the recording studio. Let's listen to the other drum room 2. It's much more live sounding, much more reflective. So that could be useful as well. It feels like drum room 1 is nearer to the drum kit. Drum room 2 is farther away. And let's check drum room 3. That feels very close indeed to the drummer. What I've done here as well, worth mentioning, is that I've monoed this up. It's a stereo room, but I've made it mono, and the reason for that is I think it was a little bit felt offset. So the snare is over on the left hand side. So I decided to make that into a mono drum room. So that sounds like, you know, a mic that would be near the drummer on the periphery of the drum kit somewhere. Last drum room 4. So that actually reminds me of a Sylvia Massey trick where you drop a microphone into a container of water next to the drums and record that. That's what that sounds like to me. So interesting. Lots of creative choices there. What I'm going to do for my brain is I'm going to move the drum room 3 up to the left. I'm going to keep near and rear where they are, but drum room 3, I'm going to keep it the next in line because that feels the closest to me. Drum room 1 feels next closest and 2 feels farther away. 4 is kind of a special effect. Not sure if I'm going to use it. I'm going to mute it just to remind me that I may not use it. So I'm going to, let's just unsolo these and let's start auditioning them. You can, some of the drum room 1 I was liking a lot, and drum room near I was liking a lot as well. What's going to happen here, I can feel, is that these rooms are going to make the need for a drum room reverb not necessary. I usually like to use things like Ocean Way or any kind of room emulation reverb to create that atmosphere around the drums. But we've got all these drum tracks, these room tracks. I don't think we're going to need that. The only reverb we may decide to use would be something on the snare and the toms. Okay, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm going to solo just the rooms and I'm going to create a room mix and yeah, see what that feels like. So I quite like where that's landed. There's no kind of rhyme or reason around that. That was just me blending faders together, microphones together, and seeing how they worked together to create a cohesive room sound. There's no rule to say you've got to use all of them. And in fact, I'm not even going to try the drum rear or the drum room 4. Drum room 4 I'm going to leave in the back of my mind. That might be fun. Maybe that's something we could use for a chorus or, I don't know, a section in the song where I feel as though I need to change the energy of the drums. So Thing to do now, all these these rooms are feeding into a room bus, and the room bus is here. So what I can do now is just kind of fade that out, unsolo these, and just start to fade that into the drum mix. And I'm going to do it on the verse now, because just because it's more sparsely played, and that'll allow me to hear the quality of the rooms better. And then we'll check what it's like in the chorus, bearing in mind splashiness on the cymbals. And I think that sounds great. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm not going to use drum room rear, and I'm not going to use drum room 4. And in actual fact, I'm going to hide and make that inactive. And same with the drum room 4, I'm going to hide and make that inactive. It's in my mind. I know it's there, drum room 4, with that thumpy thing, the thumpy characteristic of it, which was very tasty. But I'm going to see how the mix progresses, and if I feel as though the drums need a little bit of extra pizzazz, a little bit of extra something, after I've done my usual parallel compression and applied some saturation to these drums, then we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll open up drum room 4 and see what that can do. Okay, so that's the drum sound. Let's just check what this sounds like now with the bass and then with the guitars. So here's the process in a nutshell. First, audition each track in isolation. Don't just listen for what sounds exciting, listen for what might cause a problem further down the line. Second, categorise what you have. Does it sound near, far? Does it have character? Is it a special effect? Know what each one is adding before you start reaching for faders. Third, identify and park problem tracks early. If something is flagging a phase issue or it's muddying up what you've already built, just set it aside, cast it to memory and move on. Fourth, create what I often call a mini mix by blending in isolation. Get your rooms or your group of tracks working together before you blend it into the full mix. And fifth, start on a sparser section so you can actually hear what the rooms or whatever it is you're working on is doing. This is what intentional mixing looks like, and I hope this has given you a bit more confidence when tackling mixes that feel overwhelming. This process only works if your ears are giving you reliable information, and often they're not. You know when you've been listening for a while and you're not sure if that last move actually improved things or if you just got used to it. And that's your ears adapting. This video breaks down exactly why that happens, and it gives you 4 practical ways to stop it catching you out. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.